Rolling. Rolling.
Rolling, episode 7, JnJ Co. By everybody, I mean welcome Jacob.
And Jim. And today, by JnJ Co, we're talking about
a brand new
COVID
topic. I was going to say something you probably haven't heard of. Now, COVID-19. Jacob, your first reaction was, been there, done that, so sick of it, which I also feel, but why then are we doing this episode? Begs the question. Why?
As much as we are sick of hearing about COVID here and there, we haven't really expressed our own opinions on the matter.
Yeah.
So here we are.
And the truth is, it's my idea. I was trying to pull a little trick there. All right, so Jacob, you have the floor first. Since you're drinking, you must always do things contrarian and opposite of logic, which, by the way, is a foreshadow of how I feel the reaction to COVID has been. So with that said,
This is gin and tonic, by the way.
hold that cup a little closer. You'll see the run for the border bell. By the way, if I sound funny or look funny, it's because I just got braces today on the top half of my teeth. It's not for vanity's sake. I was just trying to get a retainer, and I was sold into getting my teeth straightened out. So here we are.
That's the official reason, and the truth is he did it for the videos.
Yes, and they did it for the money. Because what else do we do things for? Money, power, and... okay, I thought it was obvious, but...
Sex.
Yeah. All right, so we're already off topic, Jacob.
Well, you know.
COVID-19, as in 19 minutes.
It also relates to money, power, and sex, I suppose.
It very well does.
In many ways, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so in a nutshell, the way I feel about COVID is I don't like giving in too much to the fear-mongering of the governments or the departments announcing the severity of the situation. I don't downplay it either, but I don't give in so easily. So my biggest pet peeves during this period in particular is when people succumb to the fear and they act like defeatists. So if, say, professionals announce that this situation is going to last us for years, I'm still going to keep my chin up and try to pretend like there's got to be more optimism in that situation. Maybe it's going to be over next month, maybe in 6 months, but I won't go and bow down voluntarily and say, oh, this is going to go for years, this is going for years. They say 5 years, oh, I think it's going to go on for 10 years. I hate that. Because recently, I heard an interview by Kamala Harris, the vice presidential candidate, and when she was talking about her mother, she said that her mother did her best to always remind her children that this isn't it, that there's a better future for all of us out there. And I'm one of those people who can function if I have hope. Like I'm not the type of person who can just accept, okay, this is it, this is my life for until the end. I'm gonna lose my purpose soon, so I need to believe, even if it doesn't turn out to be true, I need to believe that there's something better ahead, something to look forward to. Which is why my favorite day of the week is usually Thursday, because come Friday, you're already using up part of the weekend that we're all looking forward to. But Thursday night, the enthusiasm is most intense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm the same way. We never talked about this, but it's true.
Right.
And you reminded me there's a bar called Thursday Night Party. Did you know? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thursday Party.
Thursday Party.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a very famous and infamous place. In one of our episodes, when we talked about racism, the bar that specifically banned Pakistanis was Thursday Party. So there's that.
How ironic. All right. I'll just give my first impressions now. Mind you, this is today's September 4th, 2020. It was a beautiful day today, by the way, which is
Fall.
Yes. Well, it feels like summer still, but we've had the longest monsoon season here in Korea in, I don't know how long, years. 20 years, maybe even longer. It seemed like the whole summer it was rainy and cloudy. Obviously, we're in COVID season still, but I'm making this more like as a time capsule, because one day we'll look back, I hope, and see this era as a crazy time that hopefully doesn't last much longer. But as of today, it's at least pretty much all 2020, right? So back in late December, when the world kind of first heard about this mysterious virus coming out of China. But at the time I was in the States, so Christmas
Week before
Eve.
Christmas.
It ended up being until early May. But
your original plan was 6 weeks.
Correct. So we're in the States. You were here, and everyone had heard in the news about this virus, but it wasn't really the top storyline until what? Well, in Korea it hit first. So Korea was one of the first countries outside China that
spiked the number of infections.
This is like February-ish, March-ish, maybe.
Then came Italy.
Yeah.
And then we all know the rest.
Then the U.S. and the whole world, really, basically, right? So now we're here at this point where different countries have had different measures. Probably the two biggest issues are masks and lockdowns. So right now, currently, Korea is in level 2.5, which is the second wave of coronavirus. There was a time in the summer where it almost had subsided. And now, basically, bars, restaurants have to pack up at 9, carry out only from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Right.
Which is weird. 5 a.m.? Like, aren't there? Why 5 a.m.?
Is it 5 a.m. though? All right, yeah.
I want to say it's 9 to 5 the other way. So that's the state, but that's only going to be for a few more days. Then they're going to make a decision on Sunday or Monday here in Korea.
I think I heard today that they're extending it. So
okay.
Yeah.
So Korea was largely praised by other countries as one of the best at handling the virus back in January because of the testing largely. It was very much on top of testing people, first of all, lots of them, and then quarantining those who were positive to slow the spread, stop the spread, etc. And contact tracing, I don't know if that was actually part of it.
It was.
But yeah, so Korea...
It's download an app where they constantly trace on movements.
Right.
And tracking it pretty much.
Now, the United States has been very different because initially there were not many tests. Now the U.S. is way beyond every country by like millions of how many tests is given. And while we're on the topic of tests, this is brand new from Steve Dace, who you'll hear me talk a lot about him if I haven't already to Jacob. He's my main source of truth, and that's kind of his motto, truth be told. He's not a mainstream media outlet, but I trust him because I know he does research and he cites sources that even we all know, like the CDC in the United States. He's factual, okay, and he's logical. And here's what just came out in the U.S. There are different levels of the virus that you can test for, okay, like different levels of sensitivity. And long story short, in most of the countries, for example, in Scandinavia, they had a certain level of testing. They set the threshold for the level that's dangerous enough to be contagious. All right. But if you dig like really sensitively and really deeply, you can find pathogens to indicate that there are traces of COVID. But if you make it so sensitive, that information will come back as a positive test, but actually that person is not really a threat. Okay. They're probably asymptomatic and they're not infectious, which is the key, right? That's the whole key of trying to find out who's got it because you don't want them to spread it. That's why we quarantine. Well, lo and behold, this is from the New York Times, which is, by the way, not at all a conservative outlet. It's very much, it's very left. They're the ones that come out and said, hey, we might have had an over-calculation of positive tests, meaning like dangerous positive tests, by 90%, meaning it's like double. It's almost double. So there are two different numbers, CFR and IFR. CFR is case fatality rate, right? How many people die out of how many cases are confirmed versus IFR, which is the infection fatality rate. So the infections are much higher than the cases, and this is not my proposal. This is coming from the CDC, all right, in the U.S., which is, large national organization that everyone's looking to. By their estimate, anywhere from 11 to 25, there are 11 to 25 times the number of cases recorded that have actually been infected. Why is that important? Because if you've been infected, then you basically have developed some sort of immunity to it, okay? Some response to it that makes the virus weaker and makes you less of a threat, basically. And the virus less of a threat to you. So what it came down to, if you took the number of cases confirmed in the US, I wish I knew the number off the top of my head, but then you multiply it by 10, which is a conservative number. It could be times 25. And then, so do times 10, okay, cases by times 10, which is the infection rate, conservative number, divide by how many deaths there are, which, by the way, that's a whole nother topic. How do you know they died from COVID versus with COVID? In fact, the CDC just said only 6% of the deaths were just from COVID, no other comorbidities, obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, hypertension, all these things, all right? So that's another issue, right? People assume that the number of deaths of COVID are from there, but actually people have died from all kinds of things, but then everyone who gets into hospitals or ERs, they're tested. Some of them get the virus in the hospital. That's very common, right? That's happened with previous viruses. Well, then they're going to get tested, and guess what? If they're positive, it gets marked as, a COVID death. Well, is it really because of COVID? Not really at all. So that's another measure. But let's just assume everyone who's died has died from COVID, not with COVID. Okay? The fatality rate then is like 2.6%, which is, I wouldn't say 0.26%? Yeah, I'm sorry, 0.26. I believe it's 0.26%. Yeah. Which is roughly a really bad flu season, okay? Now, why is this all important? Why do we keep comparing it to the flu? Well, we've had the flu for many years, and we've never had lockdowns. We've never shut down the economy. We've never had this whole debate about masks, okay? And yet we're doing the same thing we're doing that with COVID. We're throwing out all the history of biology, immunology, and virology, right? For this virus, which, yes, it is a novel coronavirus. And you might raise some counter arguments about the long-term health struggles of people who've recovered. Now, here's what I'll say. There's always a risk. There's always a risk to anything we do. Anytime we step outside, anytime we eat, there's a risk to get sick. There's a risk of dying. We've lived with this for all of our history. So it's a matter of mitigating the risks that exist and kind of figuring out, all right, what's the cost benefit? And if the benefit's greater than the cost, you might consider going for it, and vice versa. So, but my point here was to say, we know a lot about the virus now. We know who it targets. We know who's vulnerable, elderly and those with comorbidities, okay? We're reacting as if like everyone has to just shut down and change their way of life. We're creating all these problems for ourselves on our self-inflicted wounds of the economy being tanked, jobs being lost, not to mention depression, suicide, alcohol abuse, domestic abuse. The divorce rate's gone up as I hear. People being freaked out, okay, that don't want to go to the hospital now for cancer screenings or other legitimate needs.
But psychiatrists around the world are making much more money than they used to before.
Psychiatrists, streaming, like Netflix is going through the roof. Zoom's going through the roof. Not everyone suffers. By the way, that's another good point. Just to transition for a minute. Yeah. I'm not the one here to complain about everything COVID. Like, I have to say, because of COVID, we stayed in the States. I had a great extra 4 months of time. We've had extra family time because I'm teaching online from home. I think it's really enabled me and all of us to learn how to filter fake news, how to think more critically, how to be more analytical. Like, these are all good things. Not to say that I would trade that. I'd rather go back to normal. Rather this never happened. And I'm not to make light of those who have died of COVID. I mean, I have a close high school friend whose father passed away. I mean, yeah, he was 80, right? And I don't know what other things he might have had. But it hit close to home. And then his grandmom died during this time. She almost couldn't see her because, of course, in any kind of nursing homes and long-term care facilities, they were like not letting people in. Fortunately, they were able to see her before she passed. But, I know stories, tons of them, of people who could not see loved ones when they died, whether it was for whatever reason. Obviously, the students who missed out on graduation, prom, the freshmen coming in, they don't really have a proper orientation, kids not being able to have birthday parties. I mean, these are all things that, if you take one at a time, they're not that big a deal. But in the big picture, like, it has a huge effect on society, and we don't know what the long-term effects will be for years to come. But it's not going to be good, and a lot of it could have been avoided, in my opinion. So all that is to say, in sum, I think there's been too much panic, like you said. People just don't want to think for themselves. But the facts are out there, and I think if you look at the facts, like Steve Dace, and not just listen. Okay, so we all say listen to experts and follow the science, but it matters which experts, because we talked about money, power, and sex. Well, guess what? Anthony Fauci, was the expert, is still one of the experts on coronavirus, but he's not the only one. And guess what? Fauci's been wrong over and over and over again, yet he still had the biggest platform. And what does that do to any person? It usually gets to their head. And I gotta tell you, he's been revealed to be pretty much a fraud at this point, versus people like Scott Atlas, who thank goodness has been promoted to the White House. You don't know anything about this, but he's a Stanford doctor. People like John Ioannidis from Stanford as well. There are others, I can't name them off the top of my head, but they're from reputable places like Oxford. They're not like some quacks, okay? They are, there's a Yale guy that talked about hydroxychloroquine as a drug. I mean, so much of this has become politicized, right? So it's not even about facts and science anymore. And it's so hard to get the truth because the media is politicized. So they're going to say things that are flat out are not true or a very, very biased view of things. So yeah, all that's to say, I hope that this is a unique era. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever go back to normal as we knew it. But here we are, trying to capture some of the moment here. Right,
trying to make things roll.
Yeah.
So now, as you can see, everyone has their own ways of dealing with situations, and Jim and I have very different ways of handling the situation. We can agree on one thing, that we have to think for ourselves rather than rely on what information is fed to us by the media.
Mm-hmm.
And my take is that, like, Jim, while you're meticulously seeking information from people that you trust and using those analytical data, using that data to decide for yourself, I, on the other hand, I still try and keep track of what's going on in the media, but at the same time, I'm not trying to base any of that on my decisions. So, like I stated earlier, we have already established that a lot of news is fake news because media outlets, we can't really fault them for it too much, but also they are not doing their jobs to deliver the truth to people. But they also have to make money, and it's all about it can be about money and power. So most of the information that the media gives us, that feeds us, is it depends on what their agendas are. So depending on the media outlet's agenda, they can deliver totally different views on the same subject, which is why it's important for us to think for ourselves. So imagine a scenario where you're about to sit down in a school cafeteria and somebody next to you tells you, somebody that you don't really know, just tells you, oh, somebody threw up on that chair earlier. Now, you looking at that chair at that moment, it seems clean, doesn't seem to stink of any vomit or anything. So you don't know if it's a fact that somebody vomited on that chair earlier. And you don't know how it was cleaned up. Has it been properly disinfected, or has it just been simply wiped with a paper towel? Or you don't know if you can trust the source who was telling you that that chair was vomited on earlier. Maybe he got the chair wrong. Maybe the chair next to it was vomited on. This one's actually clean. And if you also think about the science of it, if this chair was vomited on and properly disinfected, chances are it's actually cleaner than the other chairs that haven't been properly cleaned in God knows how long. So you're left there standing with one source of information, not knowing what to make of which information being fed to you is facts. As far as you know, all chairs look alike, none of them look different, but one person there is telling you that the chair you're about to sit in has been vomited on earlier. But what do most people do in that situation? People will still either switch chairs or go to a different table, right? Even though they've been given incomplete information, they cannot discern whether it's factual or not. So it's really easy to trick people, especially trick people's emotions into changing their behavior and actions. Now, like I stated earlier, I don't give in to the fear-mongering, which means that just because we're in a state of lockdown, I'm not going to just defeat myself and say no to myself before I was told no. So if I want to go somewhere, I'm going to try to go somewhere. I'm not going to just stay home and say, oh no, I can't go anywhere in this lockdown situation, and tell myself no before someone else does. If I try to go somewhere and it turns out I can't, then I'll gladly stay home. I'm not going to fret about it. But the thing is, I'm not going to give in just because it's in lockdown and like, oh, in this situation, I'm too afraid to go anywhere. No, if I want to get air, I'm going to go out. If I want to get Taco Bell, I'll go to Taco Bell. But
I've done that once or twice the past couple weeks.
Every single week, actually. Can't get enough Taco Bell. Anyway, I'm not being paid by Taco Bell to endorse this, but maybe I should. So long story short, even what the media feeds us, we can't always trust is 100% factual and true. So try to use your common sense. But I know, like, of course, depending on your upraising, your sense of common sense.
Upbringing. I was
yes.
trying to think of it myself.
Yeah.
This is also English class, by the way.
Right. Upbringing. So the spelling goes here. Anyway, depending on your upbringing, your common sense may be very different from ours. But the thing is, you're only left to look out for yourself, because what people say, even professionals, they change their opinions all the time. So if you're left there hanging, just because you chose to believe in someone who wasn't perfect, which nobody is, by the way, then who's there to blame but yourself, right? In my case, and I'm pretty sure you're also like this too, but you're not really off-put by the fact that we're in lockdown. We'll do whatever we want to do. We'll try and do whatever we can. And if, like, authority steps in and says, no, you can't, then of course you don't want to go to prison just because you wanted a Taco Bell, right? In that case, I'll just gladly give up and say, all right, so I'll go next time when it's possible. But I'm not going to tell myself, oh, I really want to go to the beach. Oh, wait, but it's Corona, not lockdown. Nah, I can't. No, if I want to go to the beach, I will. But I will take the necessary measures that are either mandated by the government, or that also my common sense, or what might actually keep other people at peace. So if I go somewhere not wearing a mask, regardless of the science behind the effectiveness of wearing a mask, I will try to put it on just so I can put people around me at ease, because there's no reason to stir up controversy over something trivial. Now, if it's a life and death matter, and say, like, if I wear a mask, it's almost for certain that I will die, but other people who don't know that think that I should wear a mask, then yes, I might fight for my right not to wear a mask, right? But if it's not that kind of situation, then, I mean, just do it, right? And then take it off when you feel you're safe. When you feel there's no risk of putting other people at unease.
So this whole COVID has made me think a lot about freedom and understand it both on an individual and in terms of government. Okay, so one phrase I hear often on today's show is America, which of course is founded on the principle of freedom, and founded on the idea that government represents the people. It doesn't rule over people. It represents the people. Okay, America is not a country of laws and never will be. It's a country of political will and always will be. Maybe that's kind of not exactly the wording, but the point is that in a free society, the laws are supposed to reflect the will of the people, right? Mm-hmm. And in a free society, everyone's free to do as they wish, obviously with limitations. I mean, you can't harm your neighbor, right? And that's hopefully clear. But so actually, it's not that clear, because here the question is COVID harmful? So this is where I feel the need for these kinds of videos, right? Because I think it's important to have this discussion, in that, as Milton Friedman said, great economist, so in a free market economy, people are not meant to be forced to do anything, to buy your product or get your service or whatever, or to work for you. They're to be persuaded. So that's a key word, is persuaded. Now, I'm currently in this catch-22, because as far as masks, I mean, I hate wearing them. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I will admit that I just don't like them.
I hate wearing them too.
I don't want to wear them. But having said that, if it was shown to me and proven that they help stop the spread, then I would wear them. Now, I don't refuse to wear them on the subway, because that's the rule, that's the policy, and I acknowledge that I don't have the right to ride a subway, it's not my property. I don't have the right to go into an establishment if they require masks, because that's their establishment. So it's a respect of, it's understanding public versus private property, right? So that's also something I hadn't thought about much until now. So I acknowledge that, okay? But in public, or obviously my own home, I never wear a mask at home, but I don't think...
Neither do I.
Yeah. I guess my point is that I do feel that there's a need to try to persuade others, in that you mentioned wearing it as a courtesy to others, to make them feel at ease. Now, that's why I do wear it, actually, now in public, because for a while I didn't, and I was like, all right, I want to be like this sort of Lone Ranger who's making a point. hopefully people can wake up. I mean, that's not going to work because I don't even speak Korean very well, right? But if I was in the States,
And that's not your main interest.
Yeah, well, see, it's weird for me because I'm a foreigner, and technically this is a free country. But yeah, it's kind of not. It's not. First of all, because collectivism, but also
the
like,
U.S.
I'm,
is not
I'm a foreigner.
completely free either. But I can safely say that Korea is even less free than the United States.
Well, how is the U.S. not free? I would say it's pretty free.
Yeah, it's pretty free.
I mean, people are shooting each other in the heads through these riots. No, seriously, like they're free to carry guns and whatnot, and I think that they should be because you know, governance starts with self-governance.
Right.
Okay, and I believe that like if you look to the state, which is kind of like the view of the Democrats, the left. As big government, big state, right? Statism, which is no whole other topic, but you know, look into the government for your well-being, for your protection. You know, that should be secondary to personal responsibility, personal, basically governance, okay, and somewhat of an independent mindset. So again, speaking of freedom, I would love to be, if I were in the States, I totally would want to think that I'm the type of person that would not wear a mask. And if anyone confronted me in a loving, gentle way, as much as possible,
we'll create a scene.
Basically be like, look, you know what? You're free to do as you wish. I'm free to do as I wish. If you want to have a conversation, we can. And I'm doing this not just to be selfish because I don't like masks, but again, I don't, in good conscience, I'm not wearing one because I just don't see any support. All I see is herd mentality. Not herd immunity, herd mentality, which is not always a good thing. So yeah, I lost my train of thought here, but
right. Well, when you see people acting irresponsible or irrationally, yes, you get the urge to want to criticize them or make fun of them. And right now, what we witness a lot, especially online, is that people antagonize anyone they witness that are acting at their own will, like not wearing a mask in public or having large gatherings. And it's easy to antagonize someone for doing something that you would rather not do, but you could be wrong. I mean, we could be wrong. I could be wrong. Everyone else could be wrong. Why make enemies over nothing? Now, there is a chance that Jim and I are both wrong, and if we do end up contracting the virus and one day die from it, then sadly one day somebody will post a video on our channel saying, unfortunately, the two owners of this channel have died from the coronavirus. Thank you for your support. But meanwhile, the world goes on, and people, even throughout history, have and will continue to live the way they all want to live, each for themselves. So there's really no point in trying to be or force someone into a collective code of action. But then, out of courtesy, you do have a certain obligation as a member of society to uphold to certain standards that are required by certain situations. So yeah, it's coming back to the same point. Just think for yourself. Don't just believe what the media feeds you, and question everything. Now, that's a bold point to make from a COVID situation, but yeah, it's something that always creates problems, don't you think? People not thinking for themselves, herd mentality.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about trying to control people. I would also add that, you know, all the efforts with lockdowns and masks is trying to control the virus. Now, human beings have succeeded in corralling, you know, energy and things and being efficient. I'm not so sure we're able to corral something like a virus. There's a saying that the virus is gonna virus. All right. Now, do you remember the cruise ship, the Princess Anne? I think it was called Diamond Princess. So that's one of the first case studies actually of what would happen when there are cases of coronavirus in an enclosed environment, such as a cruise ship, which was quarantined. This is back in, I want to say March. I think it was March. All right. Long story short, let me just give some props to John Ioannidis again, Ioannidis, I think, from Stanford. He basically looked at the results of that cruise ship, which had a few hundred people on it. And long story short, I think he projected that like when 20% of the population get infected, the virus will effectively, you know, have run run its course. And after 6 to 8 months, what are we at? 6 months now since then, pretty much that's exactly what happened. His prediction in March has come true, obviously on a larger scale in the U.S., pretty much to a T. So if you're looking for a source of facts and evidence that has not been in mainstream news, because the mainstream news, going back to the politics, wants, in the U.S., wants Donald Trump to lose because they hate him, and so they want the country to be in a bad state so people will not vote for him. That's just the way things go, right? When the country's doing poorly, they're not going to vote for the incumbent. So because of the politicization of this virus, you just don't hear about these things, but the facts are out there. You just have to look for them. And as former Toastmasters, we know about grace, okay? And as Christians, we know about grace, don't we? So thank you for your grace.
Yeah,
We've gone a little bit over.
On my contact list.
Always thinking about women. No, just kidding. So, anything else? Any last comments, Jacob? What do you want to hear yourself say 10 years from now when you look back on this?
I don't know if I'm going to want to hear myself say it.
COVID what? What was that?
Whatever we say sometimes can be cringeworthy in retrospect, but in this moment, these are our thoughts. But still, stay safe is the policy, especially if you've got people that you care for, and you don't want to be the reason they suffer. Not only about COVID, but in any situation. Awkward silence.
Don't fall for the panic porn. Okay? Alright, folks. Till next time. See you when I see you.
Sooner rather than later.
I guess I'll see you when I see you.
Sooner rather than later.
Sounds good.